It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Landry University's head bass fishing coach, Coach Drew Pridgen. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into coaching and especially the sport of bass fishing?
So, being an alum from Lander, and I'll backtrack a little bit. And I started bass fishing in high school and competitively, and I have a baseball background, and I always knew I wanted to play college baseball, and that wasn't the track that God had in store for me. So I knew I wanted to continue doing something competitive. So I was like, hey, why don't I get into the fishing deal? So I found out, I'm from Greenwood, so Lander being local, it was pretty convenient. Found out they had a team, was still pretty new, and jumped on board. Uh, I've heard rumors and speculations that they were trying to maneuver the team into the athletic department, because in the past we were a club sport, so we were student ran, and so when we moved into the athletic department, obviously you have to have a coach. And I heard rumors and speculations, but I didn't really think anything of it. And then, long story short, uh, Brian Reese, our athletic director, reached out to me when I was working at the YMCA one day and said, "Hey, man," he said, "You're interested in this position? We'd love to have you interview, etc." So the rest is history. I can't really explain it. It's just a God thing, and I always wanted to work in the industry of fishing, so it's pretty special.
What was that like going to Landry University and competing as a bass fisher?
It's pretty awesome, especially with the support that we have, within our school, within faculty and staff. Um, it's pretty special, especially with the support that we have from them, as well as the president of the university. The president and the athletic director are behind us 100%. And so, when making this transition, it's pretty awesome. But when I was there, like I said, we were student ran, and so it was tough, being able to balance school and class and work, because I had to work to be able to pay to go. Because, like I said, we didn't really have any funding, so it was crazy. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I met some of my lifelong friends in it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
How's that feeling like obviously after you graduated and you became an alumni of the school and you became a head coach for the bass fishing program?
It's special. I don't think many people get the opportunity to be able to lead, whether any sport, whether they get to lead their alum in a head coaching position, for whatever sport it is. And so, it's pretty special to be able to do that. And we've got a great group of guys in, and this year is our first recruiting class coming in. And so, we're starting to build our culture and build the foundation of this program to be able to be a consistent top 25 team in the country.
What does a day in the life of as a bass fishing head coach look like?
Um, Usually, recruiting. I recruit pretty much every day. Whether it's reaching out to younger guys on social media, or if I have a recruit on a visit, or what, etc. While I'm at home, of course, I'm trying to prepare for the upcoming tournaments that we hit when we hit the road, and try to figure out where we're going to stay for lodging, and how the fishing is going to be able to help out our guys as much as possible. So, a lot goes into it. A bunch of people think, "Oh, you're a fishing coach, you get to go fishing every day." I'll be honest, I fish a lot less now that I'm a head coach than I did before I got this position. So, it's a lot of, it's team before me. I know it sounds so cliche to say, but it really is.
What does a typical bass fishing tournament look like?
So, you take off for the tournaments. Usually it's going to be, they call it safe light, which is like 20 or 30 minutes before sunrise. So, you can expect to find us awake most of the time before 4 o'clock in the morning, around 4 o'clock, just depending on where we are in the country and what time the sun rises. And go out and compete all day, and then they'll come back usually whatever time weigh in is, usually around 3 o'clock or so. Uh, And then if it's a multi-day tournament, you come back, guys do tackle, re-rig some rods, and then they'll get back up the next morning and do it all over again. But um, it's definitely not your typical sporting day, that's for sure. I know, like I said, I have a baseball background. I played travel ball my entire life, so I know what it's like, on that side of things. But fishing's got total opposite compared to other sports.
Of course, in the bass fishing world for collegiate, how do you get how do you get points and how do you obviously compete?
So we fish three different tournament organizations. Okay, well, trails. Okay, um, and we have the top 25 is based on points. Okay, so they and that's what the Association of Collegiate Anglers, they do those points, and they also have a tournament trail. So we fish their tournament trail. In their tournament trail, they'll take the top three teams from each school, and it's a point system based on where you finish in the tournament. So, say for instance, Lander has a team in fifth, 23rd, and 50 something. Okay, and those are our best finishes. They'll take those and accumulate those, and then add them up. I don't know what the exact points are for each position, and then we fish a Bassmaster, a college Bassmaster trail, and then a college Major League Fishing trail also. And then they'll take the top two teams from each school there. Um, Again, it's just cumulative throughout the year. And so last year, before the championship, we were finished up in 24th in school of the year, with our first year under the athletic department. That's really special. So we're trying to grow on that this year, and and just trying to consistently be a top 10 team. I know we have the talent to do so. It's just a matter of get out there and perform.
Of course, for those student athletes that are competing in bass fishing at Landrew, how do you keep them motivated throughout the whole day as it's a whole day tournament?
Well, most of these guys are doing it because they love it, and usually it doesn't take much motivation. I'll be honest. If they're, just say for instance, we travel all over the country. So say for instance, we just actually got back from Lake Pickwick on the border of Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi, and we were there a couple weeks ago, and it's an 8 hour drive from here. And so the guys were like, well, if we're driving 8 hours to fish a tournament and represent the school, then we're going to bust our rear ends to see what we can do. And during practice days, the guys are out there most of the time from sunrise to sunset. They're out there from daylight to dark trying to find the pattern the fish are on, and trying to find where the fish are. A lot goes into it. People think, oh, you go fishing, you get to just go throw out a line and just sit and wait. That's not the case. It's you're competing against a live creature per se, and it's you versus them.
Who are some of the teams that you compete against each week?
Uh, so for fishing, there's no Division 1, no Division 2, Division 3, NIA, etc. Everybody's in the same boat. No pun intended there. But with that being said, um, like I said, everybody fishes those same organizations. So we'll fish against Auburn, Clemson, Alabama, and then smaller schools like Carson Newman. They're also a Division 2 school. Blue Mountain College, they're in Mississippi. Bethel, Bryan, McKendree, Montevallo. Those are just a small portion of the schools. Just about nowadays, just about every school in the country has a bass team. And so you can find pretty much every school that's allowing their teams to go at these tournaments. But typically, when you think, let's use college football as an example. Okay, college football, you got your typical powerhouses. You got Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, etc. Okay, well, and fishing is the total opposite of that. Most powerhouses in bass fishing are these smaller schools because they're getting more support from the school. And fishing is you travel a lot more than any other sport. You're on the road much more. And so these smaller schools are getting more support from the university funding wise. So Carson Newman's one of the first that comes to mind, Montevallo, and these schools are Division 2 schools. And so just like us, we're also Division 2. And so the schools that get the most funding are ultimately going to be the schools that are able to be most successful.
How is it like obviously competing against those teams like Clemson, Alabama, and Auburn?
It's nothing. It's not much to that, to be honest with you. Because fishing's such a crazy sport. Anybody can beat anybody on any given day. And I know that's so cliche to say, with any sport, but fishing, it's uh, who's on the right fish. You know what I mean? So it's not really there's not really a fear there. You know what I mean? It's where as if say if we were playing baseball and we you go against Tennessee because I know Tennessee has a powerhouse college baseball program, and so it's not like that. But it's all everybody's pretty much on the same level playing field.
Of course, what does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach?
Not much to be honest with you. I wake up on tournament days and I'll wake up with guys. I'll go watch the blast off, and I'll the head coaches, all the head coaches, within the college fishing world are all pretty tight. And so we all hang around, fellowship for a bit. Sometimes we'll go get breakfast. But then most time I just go back to the hotel, the Airbnb, and patiently wait. It's excuse me, it's a waiting game because I'm not allowed to hear what the guys have on the water. It's against the rules. So usually just a waiting game to find out, and then I go to the weigh-in usually around 3 o'clock. So
Of course, what is that like? Obviously, as you said, where you can't be there on the competition day to see your athletes compete. How is that like?
Um, it's pretty. I get pretty anxious, especially if I'm talking to my guys and they have good practices where they found some good fish or they're on the right thing to be able to do good. And so I'm sitting on my hands all day. Like I said, there's not much I can do. And like I said, a lot of times us coaches just hang out uh, and stick together because we're all in the same scenario. Nobody can go out on the water. Nobody can be with them. So we're all doing the same thing, just patiently awaiting the weigh-in.
Of course, before the competition day, do y'all get a practice to go out on the lake and decide which fishes are best?
Yeah. So we usually, if it's a 1 day tournament, we'll get 2.5 days of practice. If it's a multi-day tournament, we'll get 3 days of practice, and that's just, and that practice time is for the guys to run around the lake. Sometimes there's lakes that are pretty treacherous to run, whether it be stumps or rocks, or it's a pretty shallow lake. Excuse me. And so that's the time to figure out where they need to run in the water, and also time to figure out what the fish are doing. Say for instance, this time of year we're in the transition into that fall weather now, and it's been pretty warm. And so those fish, the fish now are acting kind of weird because it's supposed to be fall weather and it's not. But now this week's supposed to be pretty cold. So and so they're trying to figure out what the fish are going to be doing, what they're relating to, if they're relating to rock, wood, docks, grass, etc. Um, and so it's all about finding how to catch numbers and how to catch quality fish as well.
Of course, in the sport of bass fishing, is it particularly just a fall sport or is it a fall and spring sport?
It's year round, to be honest with you. So it's technically a spring sport. We start. We'll start this year. We start third week of January, and we'll run all the way to the first week of June, and that'll be our technically in season, tournament season. And then in the fall, it usually starts around the 1st of September, usually around Labor Day weekend. We start our fall tournaments, and the fall tournaments are all pretty local. The tournaments that are within 2 hours of campus. But going back to the spring, that's the time of year when we travel all around the country. Like this year, we're going to Florida 3 times. We're going to Louisiana. We're going to Virginia, and Alabama a couple times. So there's we travel all over. And last year, I know we went to Michigan. We went to New York, Florida 2 times. So it's all over the map. I joke around and call ourselves part-time truck drivers. We spend more time driving a truck around the country than we do on the water.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, when you're on the road? Do you have your boats behind you or do people provide boats for you?
Yeah, you have to provide your own boat. So guys are driving all around the country with their own truck and their own boat, and that's pretty crazy to think about. Because I mean I did it for 4.5 years, and I'm like, man, so I don't know how I did that, but it'd be nice if we could get boats provided, but unfortunately that's not the case. But yes, everybody provides their own boats, own trucks, and yeah, we roll with it.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to compete in bass fishing?
So most of the time, for recruiting, I mostly look at social media. I know social media is such a big deal nowadays, and bass fishing actually has a really big presence on social media. So I'm constantly looking on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., trying to find high school students, student athletes who number one who have a good presence on social media because bass fishing is such a big marketing sport, and you know how big marketing is nowadays. And so, guys who know how to post and know how to do it, is who guys who I'm going to go after. And if they're showing, obviously grades is number one. I'm going to look at their GPA. I'm going to look at their test scores. Um, but in order to find these guys, most of the time it's looking at social media and it's looking at tournament results. Like, there's so many ways to find high school tournaments going on, and so I look and try to find tournaments that are going on and look at that.
What do you look at in those prospective student athletes when on the road?
When I'm on the road, I see how they handle themselves, see how they, uh, if they were to approach me, just see their confidence. And their confidence is a big deal for me. Because trying to build a culture here, I want to build a culture around guys who are respectful and guys who know how to carry themselves. And so that's the biggest deal for me is if a guy's walking out with me and he shakes my hand, looks me, dead in the eyes with confidence, then that's most of the time somebody I'm going to look at.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the bass fishing program?
Yeah. So it's a work in progress, but culture. It's every sport has to have a culture, and bass fishing is more like an individual sport, but at the same time, it's like if you want to have a competitive team, excuse me, if you want to have a competitive team week in, week out, you've got to have that culture. You've got to have that camaraderie. And so, one thing I'm urging our guys to do is to be more helpful to each other. Say, for instance, if there's a team that's catching some good fish in practice and one team that's struggling, then I'll step in and say, "Hey guys, let's help these guys out. Let's see, not exactly where you're catching them, but at least throw them a loop." You know what I mean? And so, but going back to what I was talking about a while ago about the about confidence and respectful, um, and so I said I want guys who are going to treat each other with respect, who are going to represent Lander the right way, and who are going to go out these tournaments with confidence and not. There's a big difference in confidence and cockiness. Um, and I'll be the first to tell you, like, there's been some guys that I really wanted to recruit, um, but I backed, and that they're really skillful, but I backed off because of the way they carried themselves. They just had their head a little too high, and I was like, well, I said, being only a second year coach and trying to build the foundation, I want guys who are all level headed, who have some humility about them, but also have confidence about themselves as well.
What does the official visit look like for the sport of bass fishing and in particular Landry University?
I know some schools are different, but I know as far as us, the student will come to campus, and our admissions department will give them a tour of campus and et cetera. Um, and then after their tour's done, I'll meet with them as well as our athletic director, Brandon Cobb. Brandon Cobb is a Bassmaster Elite Series pro, and he's actually on staff with us as our director of operations. So the three of us usually sit down with the parents and the student, and we'll talk about more in depth within the team, more details, and and sometimes if the weather's right, I'll bring my boat and I'll take them out to the lake because usually, I mean, you can't really, like I said, you can't get in the boat with these guys when you're recruiting them. So that's my first time I'm getting to see like how skillful these kids really are. Okay, yeah, I'm going off of how they carry themselves and how they approach me and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I still don't know how good they really are. Okay, and so most of the time I look at, if I take them out to the lake, I'll fish a little bit too. And most of the time I'm letting them run the trolling motor, and I'm letting them I'm watching to see how they would approach the lake themselves.
What's that like, obviously, seeing how they approach the lake and how they are on the lake?
Um, everybody's different, and so again, it goes back to time of the year kind of deals too. Just say for instance, we pulled up to these stretch of boat docks, and we're going to fish these stretch of boat docks. I'll let him run the trolling motor most of the time, and I'll see how he comes up to him. There's certain ways to fish the docks effectively, and if he just comes straight in, and makes one cast on it, or he can't pitch his bait up under a dock, or he can't really skip it, then that's probably somebody I'm going to look past. I'll be honest, and there's like I said, there's certain situations and certain ways you have to position the boat to make yourself the most effective.
What are some of your future plans for the bass fishing program?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I want to be a top 10 program. And this year, we've set a lander record. We don't have written records, but we have 5 teams competing in Major League Fishing National Championship in March in Lake Tahoe in Florida. I think in the past we've had no more than 3 or 4, so that's special. It's a step in the right direction for sure. We've got guys who are very skillful and guys who know what they're doing, and so the more national championships we can continue to qualify for, the better off we're going to be. Honestly, I keep saying school of the year points and being in top 10. Yeah, that's all great and dandy, but I think it looks a lot better on paper if we wouldn't bring home a national championship than if we're just in top 10.
What advice would you give those high school athletes that are looking to compete in college bass fishing?
Stay on the water as much as possible. Because there's no comparison to time on the water. Time on the water um is like none other. You know what I mean? Obviously, other sports you spend time in the weight room and on the field. Yeah, but fishing you can't replace time on the water. And so there's constantly changing conditions, and there's constantly um different ways to approach a lake. And so that's one thing. And I know, not everybody, but most people who know fishing, that's the answer they're going to get is to spend time on the water and watch YouTube videos. That's how I learned most of myself, is watching YouTube videos and spending time on the water.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are competing in bass fishing, looking to go professionally?
Again, time on the water, but also more so to market yourselves. Again, like I mentioned earlier, bass fishing is such a big marketing sport nowadays. These companies that are sponsoring guys, they're not going to sponsor somebody who's not good on social media, who's not good at marketing themselves. Um, so if you want to be able to partner with a company that's going to provide you monetarily, you've got to be able to market yourselves.
What advice would you give future college coaches looking to get started in the sport of coaching and bass fishing?
Um, that's a tough one, but I would say um, definitely it goes back to knowing, being able to recruit. The recruiting aspect was the biggest learning curve for me. Yeah, I recruited a little bit when I was the vice president of our club, but it's nothing like what we're doing now. So being able to recruit, being able to talk to kids, being able to talk to parents, and be prepared for any question that gets thrown your way for sure, because I get asked a lot of questions, and some questions that I'm just kind of shocked by. Um, but don't let anything surprise you. But it's awesome. Like I mentioned earlier, the camaraderie between the college coaches is second to none. Like I'm really good friends with Blue Mountain College's coach and Carson Newman's coach. Those are just two coaches like we travel together most of the time. We hang out, and so our teams are together most of the time too. So it's not like yeah, there's rivalries and stuff, but it's not like college football rivalries. Yeah, Clemson, Carolina, Alabama, Auburn, etc.
What advice would you give those people that are going through that process of switching from being a club sport of bass fishing to a Division 1 sport?
Um, Definitely get with your university, because as a school sanctioned sport, your university is going to help fund you, and um, there's a lot of loopholes that I had to go through, and a lot of things that I had to learn. When I became the coach, it wasn't like we were a club sport anymore. There's a lot of things that I had to relearn. Uh, how to go about handling faculty and staff, how to go about getting money, transferring money, bringing in money. That's what we're not NCAA, so we can bring in all the money we want to, and we're not gonna get any violations from it. So that's one big thing that's pretty awesome is learning how to handle all that, and being able to talk to administrators and getting their side of the thing too. Because, like I said, we're not running it ourselves anymore. We're at the nature of the school now.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program at?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media at Drew Pridgen 19, Pridgen. And Facebook, I'm just Drew Pridgen. And then on Facebook, we're the Lander University Bearcat Anglers. And then on Instagram, we're just Lander Bass Fishing. So find us out on there. Also, I'm going to throw out this little note as well. The whole month of November, we're doing a Giving Tuesday. So we're raising money to help fund our travel, scholarships, et cetera. And that travel money is going to go towards, maintenance if somebody breaks down, gas, lodging. So anything and everything where that money can go, we're gonna send it there. So appreciate everybody's help, and every bit is appreciated.
Thank you again, Coach Drew Pridgen, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Landry University in the bass fishing program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Drew Pridgen, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.